Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all at COP27, where so many great minds are convening at a critical time when climate action has never been more important. My name is Evan Raskin, and I'm the National Campaign Manager for EarthDay.org. We're the global organizers of Earth Day on April 22nd and environmental action throughout the year. I want to thank all of the organizations and administrations that are participating in this event today. Your work embodies the vision that we spread through our Green Cities program, which seeks to recognize that local elected officials are among the most influential figures in making decisions on managing the air, land, water, and climate that we all depend on for survival. The UNFCCC shares this recognition in their statement that the Paris Agreement process should be monitored at a local level where we take stock on the progress that we have made and implement solutions that will drive us towards success. To maximize the impact of this process, we encourage officials to rally for Earth Day, April 22nd, to advance city-level climate plans in time for meaningful progress by COP28. Earth Day has been a catalyst for environmental action for over half a century, providing a framework for success for stakeholders of all backgrounds to unite, not only on April 22nd itself, but throughout the calendar year. Institutions reflect on the progress that they have made in the past year on sustainability goals, and on Earth Day, they use this moment to adjust their sustainability plans to galvanize further action in the coming year. This is precisely what the global community hopes to accomplish here at COP27. Through the Paris Agreement, the world committed to achieving net zero emissions, building resilience to extreme weather, and cooperating at all levels to mitigate the impacts of climate change. During this conference, we must take stock of how far we have come in achieving these goals and adapt our plans accordingly to stay on track for the sustainable, equitable future that we envision. The world cannot wait to see what we accomplish here. Time is running out to limit climate change to 1.5 degrees of warming by the end of the century. The latest reports reveal that the current levels of action are insufficient to achieve these goals. In the last year since COP26, only 24 parties to the Paris Agreement submitted updated or new nationally determined contributions. As we return to our home countries following this conference, we need to turn the momentum that we have built here into real action, anchored by key moments to keep ourselves on track for real progress by COP28. 6 months from now, on Earth Day, April 22nd, Earth Day will be that galvanizing moment for institutions to accelerate their climate responses. This year's theme for Earth Day is perhaps my favorite that I've seen during my time in this organization. Our work this year rallies around the theme of Invest in Our Planet, which focuses on how stakeholders can dedicate their time, resources, and effort through their unique roles in society to advance sustainable development. This theme recognizes that climate action is not only beneficial to environmental protection in its abstract, but is also an investment in a stronger future for our families, for our communities, for our businesses, for our cities, for our countries, and for our planet. The institutions that have made these investments early and often, such as many of those up here with us today, are now already seeing the benefits, benefiting from modern infrastructure that mitigates pollution while saving millions of dollars. They are now living proof that sustainability is not just a matter of survival, but indeed the best path forward for a prosperous and thriving human civilization. Local leaders, you are in a position with immense capacity to build a healthy, happy, and wealthy future for your constituents. I am proud to welcome to the stage a group of local officials that demonstrate the success of municipalities investing in our planet. To guide the conversation, their discussion will be moderated by Meghna Tare, Chief Sustainability Officer at the University of Texas at Arlington, ICLEI board member, and the founder of the Regional Center of Expertise for Education and Sustainable Development. To Meghna and our esteemed panelists, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Evan. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the panel and the Climate Education Hub organized by EarthDay.org and ICLEI, Local Government for Sustainability. This year, President Biden signed the executive order for forestry, and so I'm really excited what happens for Earth Day 2023. We can only be hopeful, right? We've been here for a few days, and the message is clear and consistent for everyone that we are not within reach to have 1.5 degrees commitments as adopted by the Paris Agreement. And there are some challenges ahead of us, right? We can all acknowledge that. And while the world leaders face competing priorities, I think it's upon us to really bring home the message that you have to think globally, but act locally. And that's why we are here to have this conversation about how local leaders are driving climate action in their cities and towns. The Inflation Reduction Act provisions allows for the United States to have almost 40% reduction of 2005 by 2030, right? So this sets our country on a path to achieve the commitments of the NDC with almost 50 to 50% reduction overall. But it has been said that collaboration across all levels of government, cities, counties, subnationals, can't hear? Is this better? Okay. Oh, I think I lost it. Okay. Collaborations across all levels of government, cities and towns working together with their counties, subnational, is the best way to achieve that goal, reach those targets of the Paris Agreement. And cities and counties are now officially recognized as contributor to the global stocktake process. And it has been adopted by the UNFCCC that it should be a local process. And I think that's really important in driving this conversation. With more than 1,000 cities, towns, and counties around the globe, ICLEI provides the technical resources and the education and guidance that is necessary for local leaders to take action on their climate action plan, share knowledge, and accelerate the process. So while we are here, in the words of a few of the panelists that I've heard in the past few days, we really are here to address 3 bullet points, because I've been told once you go beyond 3, people lose interest, right? So the 3 bullet points that we're here to address is where we are on climate action, where are we headed, where do we want to go, and how do we get there in a climate and just way. And that is really what here we are to talk about, and some of the panelists will address these questions. But I wanted to take a moment and give a chance to my panelists to introduce themselves, take a few moments to talk about their city, paint a picture for us, those who are not from that cities, and tell us what does it mean for your city to drastically step up the ambition for the Paris Agreement.
Good afternoon, how y'all doing? My name is Mayor Eric Simmons. I'm mayor of Greenville, Mississippi. It's a city, it's the largest city in the western portion of Mississippi, but it's also the largest city in the Mississippi Delta. The congressional district in Mississippi is 4 congressional members. Congressman Benny G. Thompson, who is leading the January 6th committee, is my congressman. And I say that because it is a district that has a high percentage of minorities. And so my city has a population of about 38.6%. Of course, when you talk about climate risk and global risk and impacts around cities and around the world, those folks that are black and brown and look like me are the ones that are on the front line of those climate impacts. But I'm also here to represent a group of mayors on the Mississippi River Basin called Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative. It's a bipartisan group of 102 mayors who've come together to do climate work, to make impacts and do climate bottom-up action at local communities, but also to see what kind of climate work we can do that will impact the world around us, particularly being here in this Earth Pavilion as well. So my name is Eric Simmons, but also co-chair of MRCTI, which is Mississippi River Cities and Towns Initiative. Thank you all.
Aloha, my name is Kelly King. I'm from Maui County. I'm on the Maui County Council. And that's in the state of Hawaii, which is part of the U.S. We are, like, our entire community is a coastline. So we're at the front lines of sea level rise and climate change. And we actually have some facilities that are, the water's lapping at the edge and are falling into the ocean as I speak. So we're on the front lines of climate change. where I come from the private sector. My husband and I founded a company called Pacific Biodiesel back in, 27 years ago, back in 1995. It's just the oldest biodiesel company in America now. And when you come from the business sector, you don't have a lot of patience. You're really results oriented. And so I've kind of I chair the Climate Action, Resilience, and Environment Committee, and I've kind of approached it from the point of view of getting things done and going the distance, trying not to compromise. We are at a point where we're losing our coral reefs due to a lot of human activity. So we passed the strongest chemical sunscreen ban in the world. You cannot come to Maui County and use anything on your body to protect you from the sun except for zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. So, that's kind of the approach I've taken, is that we have to go as strong as we can. We just passed a lighting bill to lower all outdoor lighting that's along the shoreline to below 2% blue light, and make sure that all string lights are shielded so that we protect the seabirds from what we call seabird fallout. The fledglings hatch and they get distracted by these lights, and they circle around till they get tired, they fall on the ground, they get hit by cars, eaten by dogs or cats. We also have turtle hatchlings that will crawl up towards the lighting on the shore instead of crawling into the ocean after they hatch. So we have a lot of these issues on biodiversity, the environment, the protecting our wetlands and our watersheds that are in real time necessary, because we're getting flooding because we're losing our wetlands, and we're getting erosion because we're losing our coral reef. So my position on the Maui County Council is the chair of that committee, but I also sit as vice president of the Hawaii State Association of Counties, where we share our ideas countywide. And so I've already gotten one of the other counties to pass the same sunscreen bill, because we're all in the same ocean. Just because we protect our shores doesn't mean it's still not happening. But I wanted to share one story about Earth Day for Evan, because I also, a while ago, when our University of Hawaii Maui College started the Sustainable Sciences Management Program about 8 years ago, and I was sitting on the first advisory committee, I said, why are we not doing Earth Day at the college? Nobody's doing Earth Day, it should be us. And so Earth Day that year was on a Wednesday, and the rest of the committee was saying, should we have it the weekend after or the weekend before? I said, Earth Day's on April 22nd. They said, yeah, but that's a Wednesday. Should we do it the weekend after, the weekend before? I said, Earth Day's on April 22nd. They said, well, that's not very convenient. I said, that's why it's called the inconvenient truth. So, Earth Day is actually my favorite day, my favorite, I call it a holiday of the year, but it should be every day, because what we're talking about is not really saving the planet. It's about saving the humans. The planet is going to kick us off way before something happens to it. So we're here to save the humans. Anyway, I really appreciate being on this panel. I feel like family, because some of us are always on panels together. So we're going to take the show on the road someday, right? Anyway, thank you so much for having us here. I'm really thrilled to have Meghna being our moderator as well.
Thank you, Kelly. My name's Sam Liccardo. I'm part of the American Circus here. I'm the mayor of the city of San Jose, which is a city of about 1 million people in the heart of Silicon Valley in California. And we're a very diverse city. About 40% of us were born in a foreign country, 40% of our adults. And so our challenge really is, we've made a lot of progress on the technological side, as you might expect, being in Silicon Valley. We now have 95% of our electricity comes from decarbonized sources, either renewables or hydro. But the real challenge now is moving the rest of the economy onto the grid. That is electrifying our transportation, electrifying our buildings. And that's not a technological problem anymore. That's an adaptive problem. That's a problem of really human choices. And, as a woman in my community put it so well, a Spanish-speaking mom in a neighborhood near mine said, you talk all the time about climate, but hey, we're families struggling to pay our utility bills. Make this matter for us. And so that's our big challenge now, is we're trying to electrify our economy. How do we make electric vehicles accessible to many of our low-income families? How do we help families that are struggling to pay their utility bills be able to electrify their appliances, for example, reduce emissions, reduce the threat of natural gas in their own homes as they're saving money? So that is our great challenge and what I'm working on right now.
Thank you very much. Hello, My name is Madina. I come from Senegal, in Dakar. And I am here with my colleague and with my student. I am a teacher in the Environmental Science Institute in Senegal at university. Yes, I am a counselor in Dakar City and a president of the Environmental and Development and Sustainable Development Commission. We are here in this COP to represent Dakar City, and we would like to have some partnership in climate finance, because the mayor of Senegal have declined his program in climate energy plan. Yeah. We have our climate energy plan, and to reach this, the goal of the climate energy plan, we have to find some findings, and it's not very easy for local authorities to reach these findings. In Dakar, we have a lot of issues about climate. We have pollution, air pollution. We have floodings. The floodings is a big problem in Senegal. So I am very happy to be here to exchange our experience and to learn from each other's experience. And yes, we can continue the discussion. Thank you to give me these opportunities.
My name is Axel Grael. I'm the mayor of the city of Niterói in the state of Rio de Janeiro. Niterói is across the Guanabara Bay from the city of Rio de Janeiro. We're in the very heart of the metropolitan area of Rio, and we are 500,000 inhabitant city. I'm a forester by training, and I started as an environmentalist in the late 70s, and in 2013 I became the vice mayor of the city, and last year I became the mayor, and we have now the opportunity to develop many programs that we are, since 2013, we are developing in the city of Niterói, which has a great opportunity because although we're in the heart of a very large metropolitan area, we have 56% of our territory protected by parks and other protected areas, but in 20 years ago, we suffered from heavy rains, and we had landslides, and we had floods, and more than 100 people got killed. So the city is mobilized for the climate issue. We started the first climate change office, local climate change office in Brazil, and the secretary is Luciano Paes, who is here. And so we are developing lots of policies, to engage people and to develop climate change education at schools and at communities. And I will talk later about one of our projects that we are developing in one of the most low-income communities in Niterói, that we are developing a program to engage them, to make that community the first zero carbon, not zero carbon, but the low carbon community in the city. And we are using to motivate people a program that we started using a local currency that is only good inside our boundaries. So we give out the support on the social programs using that local currency. Those families, we have 300 families already engaged in the program, and if they reach targets, they will have a prize with this local social currency. So it's a way to get people motivated and get them engaged, making their communities a safer climate community.
Thank you so much. Social currency, that's awesome, and I'm sticking with it. But congratulations on having your first office on climate change. You have power, my friend. And I'm really glad to be here with an educator who I feel are really impactful in the fight against climate change. And sometimes I think educators are the ones who make Earth Day every day happen. And we are the ones who turn inconvenient truth to acceptable truth with knowledge and education. So I'm really proud to share the stage with an educator. Thank you for your work. I want to move on to how environmental issues for your community are putting your population at risk, and how our cities reducing the vulnerability that their communities or their cities or counties are facing through action plan. I mean, we have different cities here. Mississippi has been facing some challenges with access to clean water. Maui County has some challenges with, protection of the natural resources. San Jose has some challenges with transportation. So I'd like you to expand on it and explain how you are helping your communities address that risk.
Yes, on the Mississippi River Valley, since 2005, we have sustained over 230 billion with a B disaster losses due to climate, not including the 30-year drought that we're experiencing right now. And if you look at the drought in the Mississippi River, 2 weeks ago, our barges were being loaded half full, but right now, barges are being loaded 20% full. And what that does for economic folks, our grain elevators, our companies who are transporting the wheat, the soy, the grain to market around the world is this increase in transportation costs. In Greenville, we have the lowest low water level right now at 7 feet. So barges cannot go through Greenville, Mississippi. So we have experienced those disaster losses, and what these mayors on the Mississippi River have done collectively together is looked at regional, multi-state climate performance and mitigation work. And so we've partnered with Ducks Unlimited, 2 Degrees of Doubt, One Architect, global partners like America's All In, to look at how we can deploy nature-based infrastructure on the Mississippi River that will help us with those disasters and help us not only with flooding, with drought, but how we sequester carbon, how we reduce the level of methane release, how we create more ecological and economic development projects with the deployment of this nature-based infrastructure. And so we've announced, and we will announce on November the 12th here in COP in Egypt, about 5 projects, Greenville and the Memphis area being one of those projects, where we would deploy 66,000 acres of nature-based infrastructure. And we're doing that on wetlands, marshes, reconnected floodplains, and it's gonna help cities like Greenville, Mississippi, because what happens upriver happens downriver. And when a hurricane comes from the Gulf, like Katrina or Hurricane Ida, it starts in New Orleans, but it finds its way in Greenville, Mississippi, and upriver as well. And so it's what we're doing together, like we're here at COP, working together to implement these performances. These natural-based infrastructure that we're gonna deploy is gonna help us reduce President Biden's 30% goal by 2030 by 30%. And we're looking to do other natural-based infrastructure in the near term as well, and also in the medium term. So we're just working together as communities on the Mississippi River to see what we can deploy nature-based infrastructure. That's how we're doing.
Thank you. I'm just going to repeat the questions because I know it's hard to hear. Our question was, how are the environmental issues for your cities and counties putting your population at risk, and how are you addressing that risk for your community?
Okay, actually this was a great, Mayor, this was a great introduction because we have a lot of the same issues with our wetlands, with our watersheds. the community I live in, which is South Maui, we had 20 years ago over 200 acres of wetlands. We have less than 25 acres today. So what has happened is we've been looking at the Army Corps of Engineers definition of what a wetland is, and it's very narrow. So you have to have 3 out of 3 conditions, which really don't exist in a lot of the areas that have dried up. What I've done recently is pass an ordinance called the Wetland Restoration Bill that is going to cause our planning department to create a wetland overlay map, and also it expands the definition of a wetland. So you only have to have 2 of those conditions. So what we're looking at is places that used to be wetlands that are not anymore, that should be. And so we have those issues with our watersheds too. We're trying to expand our watershed plans. One of the things I found out recently is that our watershed plans, we have 13 watersheds on Maui, and our watershed plans do not meet EPA standards, which means you cannot apply for EPA grants. So, and I actually happen to sit on the local government advisory committee to the EPA, so that's how I found that out. So now we're starting to revamp our watershed plans to up the standards to EPA so we can then apply for grant monies to do that. But a lot of our problems in Hawaii in general stem from over-tourism. Back in the 80s and 90s, my community of South Maui was the fastest growing community in the state of Hawaii, and there was just rampant development with no respect to nature. It was just wherever you can develop a hotel, develop it. Wherever you can develop a housing project, develop it. And now we're getting the flooding because we haven't followed we haven't left open the natural pathway of water to the ocean. So now we're trying to redevelop drainage systems, and I'm making a big push for ecological drainage systems. We're looking at the one particular drainage system where they're trying to take 2 drainage systems, reroute one over to the other, and it's talking about $57 million project. If we do an ecological drainage system for both of those, and they follow their natural pathway, that cost is less than $7 million. So we're trying to come up with these nature-based solutions that are actually less expensive. They honor nature. They might mean we're not going to be able to develop like we were before, but if we don't stop manipulating our environment to our own industrial and commercial needs, we're not going to get to where we need to be at the end of this decade. So the idea of nature-based is really like go with nature. Stop manipulating your environment for your own financial gain. And my favorite saying is what I want to get to is so that everybody's making a living instead of a few people making a killing, which is what we've seen in the Hawaiian Islands, where tourism is such an extractive industry. Most of the people coming in and making money off of tourism are taking it out of our state because it's multinational hotel chains, it's pension funds from Canada that now own most of the agriculture on Maui. We have to get back to the circular economy where we're using our own resources, making our own goods and services for our own people, keeping the jobs and the revenue there. So along with paying attention to nature-based, we're trying to diversify our economy to keep it circular so that everything, as much as possible, returns to our own community. And that's kind of where the big challenge is right now. We're getting new leadership after yesterday's election, which I'm very excited about because I used to sit on these panels and wish one of these guys was our mayor in my community. But we are going to have new leadership, and I think we'll start going in the right direction, nature-based, circular economy.
Yeah, it's interesting how I listen. The adaptive challenges we're all facing inevitably involve water. For us, it's both drought and floods. And we are obviously in the middle of much of the western United States is in the middle of a terrible drought right now. So we are employing some nature-based solutions. For example, we passed a measure, went to the voters to pay for a $50 million bond to go purchase hundreds of acres, and now will be thousands of acres in an area called Coyote Valley. And we're using that both to protect our urban areas from flooding that comes from a nearby river, as well as to protect an underground aquifer that provides critical fresh water for us. And we're also recognizing the need for us to recycle water and to purify the water that we have within our own community, because obviously there are challenges with lots of communities competing for scarce water, but also there's a huge impact on the environment. There's a lot of energy consumption in the conveyance of water. And so we're expanding our advanced purification plant that now provides us about 10 million gallons a day and we want to expand that dramatically so that we can be more self-sufficient with recycled, purified water. So these are the great adaptive challenges for us from changing climate.
Thank you very much. As I told you, the city of Dakar has his action plan, and this plan is aimed to help us to face two issues. We have flooding and air pollution. For air pollution, the city collaborates with the institute, with the Quality Institute for Pollution in Dakar, in Senegal. And we have implemented some instruments to measure quality, the quality of the air. And we have also an alert system, a warning system. When there is a smoke, the SMS is sent to all the population to inform that you have to be careful to go out because there is a smog. And we have also an education program with partnership with the elementary and secondary school in order to prevent health for asthmatic, because we see that we have a rise of asthmatic, and we are talking about future generation. So the air pollution is a big problem in Senegal. And flooding too, because this year we have a lot of floodings and we have some people who died in the floodings. And the mayor of Dakar City organized a big conference to talk about vulnerability, about mitigation plan and adaptation plan with all the stakeholders, with experts in climate change, with the population, the local communities, and we have done a report. And we transfer this report to the central state in order they include our solution, the local solution, in their adaptation plan. Thank you.
So in our case, very similar to the other cities, we have a big concern about water vulnerability. First of all, the Rio de Janeiro metropolitan area, which is a 10 million inhabitants metropolitan area, only has 2 sources of water. And the 2 sources are very, the water comes from far away, and the main source has to go across a mountain area, so it takes a lot of energy to bring over water to the city of Rio de Janeiro. And Niterói relies on a even shorter water source. So, and it's clear that the weather is changing in the last decades, and is not, raining is getting much more concentrated, and so in the end, there is a concern about the availability of water to the city. In our case, one of the main priorities is on the city resilience to landslides. Our geography, our landscape, is basically with steep slopes and flatland and the sea. So when it rains, when we have storms, the water goes fast down the hill and then slows down on the lowlands. So we're investing over $140 million for the last 10 years on landslide prevention. which is a lot of money. It's a lot of expenditures because through the years, some areas that shouldn't have been occupied by urban development ended up being occupied, and now we pay the cost to prevent people from the landslides. Another thing that I would like to remark is we have on the flatlands, we have a lake system, 2 lakes connected by a channel and connected to the sea. And this lake system was very polluted for many years, and now there's an effort to clean up the lake system. And one of the solutions is the largest nature-based solution investment in Brazil, which is basically to prevent drainage, urban and natural drainage, water to go into the lake and carry on sediments and pollutants. So based on natural, like artificial wetlands, preventing the pollution of the lake system, which is also a way to provide the city more areas, more green area for leisure and you know, for the populations. So that's what I wanted to remark here.
Thank you. Ms. Medina, I am with you that the challenges of bad air quality and air pollution is an important part of the climate change discussion, and I come from Dallas, Texas, where we are non-attainment for air quality standards and have a very high rate for asthma in children and adults. The US just announced about the roadmap for nature-based solutions with strategic recommendations to address the impact of climate change, loss of biodiversity. And so this is really kind of a validation of the fact that we are on the right track, where everybody has talked about how they are already implementing nature-based solutions to address climate change impacts for their cities. So that's great. But now let's talk to money, right? And this is a question for the US team. The US has passed unprecedented level of climate investment, and I wanted to take a moment to ask, how is your community collaborating with the state and federal government to take full advantage of this opportunity? San Jose has a small company called Google, right? There are various finance models of public-private partnerships, payment for ecosystem services. So how are you leveraging the presence of those powerful companies for private partnerships and the investment that the US has put out there towards climate action?
Yeah, well, first, with regard to the federal legislation, I think it's really important for us as communities to identify our priorities and focus on them, because taking the blunderbuss approach and applying for every grant program will destroy your staff because they deserve to sleep too, and you're not going to get in all those grants, and you really need to focus on priorities. That's the hard part. So really identifying what you're going to drive is really important for us, and we've done a pretty good job of that. And then the next step, it seems to me, is really trying to activate a community in a way that is, and so many of us represent very diverse communities, making sure that we're doing ways that are linguistically and culturally appropriate, relying on trusted organizations in the community, whether they're churches or nonprofits that are deeply engaged in the community. And so that way we can really, because we think about what the Inflation Reduction Act is doing right now, and it's creating a lot of opportunities for consumers who take advantage of, for example, tax credits and deductions to be able to purchase electric vehicles, or both new and used, or to retrofit appliances in their homes. And that really requires hard work that's ground up, that really requires the connections with people and trusted partners. Then as we go to the larger companies that you mentioned, we have been partnering with several of them. The good news is these are companies that tend to be in Silicon Valley, tend to be very enlightened around environmental issues. And so that helps. Google, for example, is building out a major campus of about about twice the size of the Apple World headquarters in our downtown. And one of the things they're trying to do is build out a microgrid that will make it completely net zero. And we are partnering with them in part because we'd like to be able to have that microgrid serve our surrounding community as well. And so when there is a community benefit that's attached, they certainly get a lot of good media, and that's fine with us. We want to give them lots of praise if they're willing to dedicate resources that will help our community.
That's great. I'm going to try not to repeat what you said, but it is true. We have to start organizing our priorities. We're already starting in Maui County to work with our administration and our congressional delegation on what the priorities are going to be. But one of the things that I've noticed over the last couple of years is that there's a lot of angst about the pandemic, climate change, for people that can't even put food on their tables and they're having a hard time finding a place to live. The average cost of a house on Maui is $1 million. And so we have a lot of people who are doubled up on renting houses. We have a homeless problem. And so a lot of that infrastructure money that we're looking at is roads and water infrastructure, wastewater, and things that will help us build affordable housing and help us with food security. The food security issues and the affordable housing have to happen in conjunction with our climate efforts. Otherwise, we're not going to get people on board. If you can't supply the basic needs to people, they can't even think about climate change. How does that affect them when they can't even feed their kids? So these are huge issues, and our county has started to remove money from the tourism industry and put it into agriculture. We're trying to diversify our economy, but we're also trying to make it circular, like I said earlier, so that we're growing our own food, so that we're making our own energy. And I'm making a big push. Every community has a big push on electrifying their vehicles. My big push is we want to own the EV chargers in our community. We don't want a multinational company coming in and owning our grid or our electric vehicle systems or our water systems. So I think that the results are in, and our charter amendment just passed to create a water authority in our community so that we could look at applying for the lease for the water systems. Right now it's owned by a private company that's actually funded by a Canadian pension fund. And this is the water that comes to all of our farmers, our big ag, our houses, and we don't own the system. So a lot of that money we're going to need to put into those systems and make them locally owned so that they return back to the community. And that's bringing all these things together at one time, I think is the only way we're going to get there. I think that's one of the issues with this last election is that, people are saying inflation is the biggest issue. We're sitting here saying climate change is the biggest issue, but they can't even get there until they can put gas in their car and put food on their table. So it has to be a holistic approach.
Cities have the capability of being something for everybody only when and only because they're made by everybody. And so when you think about that question, to really move a community forward, you got to have local government, state government, federal government, private, churches, what the mayor said, everybody working together for that end. The problem with the equity question is too many folks been left behind. All right. So how do you begin to address that? These bipartisan infrastructure laws, the Inflation Reduction Act, is great. They're great large-scale vehicles, but the fact of the matter is the people that is in most need are less equipped to apply for it. So Greenville, Mississippi got 30,000 folks. Up north from me, Rosedale only got 2,400 folks. The mayor comes to work 2 times a month. That's when she has her board meeting. She ain't got no engineer. She ain't got no transportation director. So how can she apply for the bipartisan infrastructure law? How can she apply for the Inflation Reduction Act? MRCTI did a really innovative thing. They created a Mississippi River Cities and Town facility, infrastructure facility that's going to help the large cities like Memphis, Tennessee, New Orleans, St. Louis, but also MRCTI infrastructure facility for small cities that's going to help staff, engineers, infrastructure. When you talk to a small mayor about a cost-benefit analysis to apply for a federal grant, they say, what are you talking about? So here you are, a community that has been left behind, can't really go forward unless you create that infrastructure for them to apply for that. And so I think this organization has done a really good job in doing that. Going back to what you're saying, everybody has to be engaged. People need to understand what they're applying for. Private business need to be engaged. Mayor, you talked about community, churches, everybody needs to be engaged. But what we're trying to do is make sure folks at the lowest level are engaged. When you talked about those folks in need, we got single mothers in our community that gets an SSI check, or an elderly woman that's raising 4 of her grandkids because the mother and father, well, the father's not there and the mother died, is only getting $757 a month. How can she talk about climate change when she's determining whether or not she's going to buy Pampers or put food on the table? And so when we begin to think about that, we begin to think about how can you begin to do equity work, build sustainable communities, but how can we begin to make sure that the person in Greenville, Mississippi deserve infrastructure money and invest in Inflation Reduction Act money, just like the person in Maui or California. And so when we begin to think about it in that way, I want to thank President Biden and the Biden-Harris administration for these significant investments that we're seeing, but thank all of you for what you're doing in your community. Continue to have these conversations on a global stage to see how we can help everybody in the world. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for those insights. I mean, you're right. You know, social equity has to be an important part of the discussion, and we really have to apply systems thinking to this challenge about climate change. You know, everything is connected, from access to food, to access to transportation, to access to education, access to home. So when you really think about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, food, clothing, shelter, air, education comes before the self-actualization that climate change is impacting me and my community, right? So it's important that we bring this discussion, besides the fact that, you know, there's a lot of money and investment out there to address climate change, but we really have to go down to the roots, right, to solve this problem. Thank you for that. This question is for Mayor Grail and Ms. Nadina. You know, you have implemented great nature-based solutions. You know, the World Economic Forum put a price of $44 trillion on ecosystem services, which is half of the world's GDP, right? That's how powerful, you know, that motivation is towards nature-based solutions. But I wanted to ask you, what are some of the benefits or economic benefits that your community can drive from the climate action that you're having within your cities or communities?
Okay. It's about, do you hear me? Okay. About the economic solution. Okay, thank you. Okay, in one of the action plan is to reduce the energy bills. So we implement a lamping program in order to replace 50,000 sodium light point to LED points. So with this program have 3 advantages. The city of Dakar have a reduction of the energy bill from 30%. And this gain, we have this gain, and we transfer this money in order to help women and young to have some adaptive plans. And with this reduction, the mayor have a program of scholarship to help education. 50 days a week ago, the mayor organized a very big event in order to give some scholarship to improve education, quality education. And it's we have this opportunity because we have reduced our energy bills. It is one of the project we realize, and now we are looking for findings because we have problem of findings to decline and to finance all this action plan. Okay, thank you.
Well, the question is on the benefits. Sorry.
Yeah. How do you secure economic benefits from your climate action for your community?
Oh, okay. Well, in the first question, I talked about the system that we have with the social currency. This is one benefit, and that we're starting with the first community, and now we have the other communities wanting to join the same activity. But basically, the benefits is to provide a better resilience and prevent people from the threats of landslides and floods. I would like to make a comment on what you said about the scholarship. We developed a program that is called the Niterói Eco-Social program, which is we work with youth, with kids from more socially threatened communities. Some of them problems with criminality. So we are offering those youth a program where they can work, and they are paid for that, to work on landslide reforestation programs and also garbage management in their communities, and also protecting local springs, rivers and springs, and so they get paid. They have to go through some professional skills training, so we can provide them a better chance to go into the professional market. So and this is all designed through climate change and sustainability and recovery of habitats, and at the same time that we give them an opportunity very often to get away from criminality and violence. So it's a program that matches the two ends of it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think workforce development is really key in this conversation, and I know the EPA has put forward millions of dollars to establish environmental centers that are focused on environmental justice, but also workforce development. How do you train the future leaders to enter into the green economy that we are pumping so much money into? So education and training is an important part, and thank you for what you're doing in your community. So we are here talking about the global stocktake process that's going to happen in 2023 and the commitments of various countries towards that process. I wanted to ask each and every one of you that when we come together next year at COP28, what do you hope will have happened to get to the emissions reductions on track within the next 1 year?
Well, like we said, with the nature-based infrastructure, we want to bring President Biden closer, 30% closer to the NDC goal. But that's only with 66,000 acres of nature-based infrastructure and sequestering about 420,000 tons. We're going to need a whole nother million on the Mississippi River Basin to even do that. And so we're hoping to do that, look at ways to do that. Don't know if we can get it done by next year, but it's our goal to continue to do our part to contribute to carbon sequestration in ways we can do it to help the overall world.
For next year? Okay. Well, we've been talking about this for a year. Some of us met with the previous National Climate Advisor, Gina McCarthy, last year, and the big message to her was, get the money to the cities and counties. Do not give it to the states, because some of the states are giving it back to the president. You have to get it to the boots on the ground. We're the ones doing the action. We will make it happen. So I would like to see more of that. I attended Al Gore's presentation on the Climate Trace program that's going to bring accountability to other countries, all of our counties and cities, to make sure that what we are self-reporting is actually happening. And I hope that we have that kind of accountability on action so that when we are receiving this money, someone's holding all of us accountable to make sure that we're spending it wisely, that we're getting results, and that those results are making a difference. That, collectively we can do so much, but we have to hold accountable, all of us. Our county, after being here last year, and I saw a lot of the cities and counties with the dashboards that you guys had from not just climate, but also from the pandemic money. And we haven't done that in our county. So accountability is a huge issue for us. But yeah, that's the big thing, is let's get the money to the people who are doing the work.
Thank you. I hope by next year what we'll be able to talk about is how we've activated communities in our city, Spanish-speaking, Vietnamese-speaking, Punjabi-speaking communities to participate, for example, in electric car share efforts in cooperatives, in participating in with landlords and renters together, being able to retrofit many of our multifamily buildings for energy savings that will also reduce utility costs, and installing solar in so many ways, as well as with storage. It's those kinds of examples of community action that I think will help to motivate so many others. And I hope that those are the stories we'll be able to tell.
Thank you very much. We have already talked about finance, but for the next scope, I hope a better participation for African youth, because we are talking about sustainable development, and they are the future. We have to get them opportunities to participate in the COP in order that they can be aware of climate issues. And Senegal and all African and foreign countries have to reach Agenda 2030. We have 8 years to reach this goal. How can we reach SDG goals without finance? And all the SDGs are included, where we are talking about women autonomy. We are talking about education. So how the COP can integrate the issues, the discussion with Agenda 30 goals. That is my concern about the next COP. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope not to be too intense on my words here, but the first COP that I attended to was COP 5 in Buenos Aires. And I've been following all the different conferences since then. And it's sometimes very frustrating to see how slow we are moving. Of course we are moving. We are, things are, we're coming out with some interesting mechanisms, and but we are here to talk about implementation. And I always have a feeling that the lobbies have done their job. So we're kind of all tackled, and it's difficult to move because the lobbies did their work, and we need maybe we need some new players, to help to make the thing move again. And I'm convinced that cities can be the player to make it move. On the last meeting in Glasgow, there was a group of 10 or 12 mayors from many parts of the world, and we met with the Secretary General, Guterres, and we took that word to him, saying we need the cities to be a player, and subnational governments, and because many, most of the world population is living on cities. Most of the emissions are coming from the cities. and a lot of the action is happening at the cities. So why we are not part of the decision making? And this is what I would like to see better next time. See cities having a better protagonism and becoming a stronger player.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you're right. I mean, cities are catalytic for the region that they are in, and they are the ones that have the potential to drive the conversation in the right direction through the implementation plans, which we are talking about here. And SDG is my favorite word. I think the goals and indicators adopted in the 17 SDGs are amazing for progress and concrete action towards not just climate action, but social equity issue, water conservation, education, everything that we have talked about. And transportation is a big part of a puzzle, right? California has done a great job. You are the first folks who established the CAFE standards for everyone to adopt, and then now you are the first ones to have EV vehicles by 2030. So I hope everyone can follow that model and push their cities and the counties and subnationals to do better. I want to take a moment here and see if we have any questions in the audience, any burning questions, desires to seek answers. Yes, please.
I'm Nobuyuki Asai from Japan. Yeah, all of the cities that you are coming from sound very, very attractive, and yeah, but particularly for the Maui County. Yeah, as you know, yeah, because Japanese people are really crazy for Hawaii, but I guess more than 99% of the Japanese tourists are not aware of the situation that you mentioned. So I hope. For example, like direct visiting of the site of the nature-based solution is embedded in the kind of tour. Then, yeah, they can be more aware of the situation. So, yeah, brief comment.
Thank you so much for acknowledging that, because we have been trying. He was speaking about Japanese tourists not understanding where we're at and some of the issues that we have, and so over the past couple of years, I want to say probably past half a decade, we've been pushing the tourism industry to get into tourism management, stop growing the industry and start managing the industry. And they keep saying they will, and they have not. So what our county council has done is removed a lot of funding from the marketing. We're trying to put it into agriculture. We're trying to put it into the local businesses. And we've got a separate entity now creating that ecotourism opportunities. We have something called the Pono Pledge that we're going to be asking tourists to sign so that you understand when you come to Maui some of the regulations we have, like the sunscreen regulation, like the lighting regulations, and why we're doing that, because we're trying to save and protect our biodiversity. So hopefully more of that education, you'll start to see, when you fly over on the airplane, you'll start to see some of those videos educating, as well as safety issues, things like don't turn your back on the ocean, because we've had a lot of those things. But it's been a little bit slow, and that's why, I get frustrated, because I'm a business person. I like to see things happen right away. So thank you for bringing that up, because if we know there's a particular market, like the Japanese market, then we can start putting those materials out also in Japanese, so that you folks can understand where we're at and how you can be the type of tourist that's welcoming that, and that helps our community, rather than, a lot of the damage we get to the impact on the environment. So thank you for that.
Any more questions? Yes, please.
Hi, everybody. I am Mbake Sek from Senegal. I'm a French speaker. I have a broken English, but I try to understand what I'm talking about. Dakar is a city in the Atlantic coast, and we are vulnerable for sea level rise. Many cities on Dakar, we have wave on our well. Century, Mosque, and many things, and Gora Island, we have victim of sea level rise. Are you have in Mayor City of Climate some strategy for city who are vulnerable for sea level rise? Is my first question. The second one, Senegal is my country, and next year we join the country who drill gas and petrols. Who drill gas and petrol. Gas and petrol offshore drilling is dangerous. It's not safe. We started. We need to have the experience of big city who have the same problems like offshore drilling, petrol and gas. I don't know if it's clear, but it's my 2 points. The sea level rise and oil and gas drilling in the city. Thank you very much.
Je m'appelle Etwick et toi. Je français beaucoup, just beaucoup. But what I would suggest, Senegal, the Mississippi, when you think about global GDP, in 2050 it's going to be about 1/4 from all of the major populous river basins. And so what we've done is just partnered with a number of cities and communities. And so what I would suggest in addressing the issue is to form some type of coalition with Senegal, all of the cities on the Nile, to see what you can do to address the issues. Now, of course, I know Africa is an oil producer. I mean, you have a lot of oil that is contributing to your GDP. And so I think it needs to come, you know, from bottom up, like we're doing on the city level. And if you begin to cry and be the loudest wheel, I think if you all work together as a collective, you can begin to effect change that will help the countries that you live in.
Well, my city, we have about 40% of our budget coming from oil. We have, and it's all offshore drilling. So, and I worked for many years as an environment professional and making sure those oil rigs would run safely. And well, oil drilling is not, there's a lot of risk. And there is a lot of environmental impacts. But I'm not sure if you can afford to not to explore it if it's out there. In that case, what I would suggest is that you make sure that you will be using the best technology. Because you know, we have had some oil spills, we have had some problems, but is one of the main sources of funding to my city and to the state of Rio de Janeiro, and I'm sure we can't afford not to use it. But you know, we must make sure that we're using the best technology.
Thank you, Mayor. Any more questions? Sounds good. I wanted to ask one question. Oh, I just wanted to ask one question. For your climate action, and this is an open-ended, open question, but are there any specific tools or frameworks that you use to plan climate action plans for your counties or cities? For example, Ms. Medina talked about the evolution tool using the SDG framework, and I would like to elaborate on that. But if there's anybody else who would like to talk about the tools that they are using for climate action.
I don't hear all the questions.
The evolution tool that we talked about.
Some issues.
Yeah.
That
The evolution tool that you were using for climate action.
Another tool.
Yeah.
What kind of, what tool we use in Senegal? Okay, okay. The tool we are using, my colleague. It's about climate action. Okay. Oh, our main document is energy action plan. Yeah, it's our main document, and this action plan in decline in small action. They are budgeted. These actions are budgeted, and we are working with the communities, the local communities. We have what I can say, l'Observatoire citoyen. Comment on le dit encore? L'Observatoire citoyen. We have citizen. We have citizen consultation. We have a citizen consultation. This is tools for us to have the preoccupation for a citizen about climate change, and in these consultations and can come, and we have in this consultation we have all the stakeholders, religious stakeholders, Christian, local communities, EF, women, elders. Yeah, it is a new tool that Dakar Cities is making for climate change. Yeah, it is a new tool.
Thank you so much. I think that was impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I know I've been talking about the global stocktake process, but I wanted to give Kale a chance to come talk about and give us a little bit of overview of what the process is and give some more context into the session that we had.
Thank you, Meghna. Yeah, amazing panel. Very, very inspiring and showing that the work that we hear about here at the COP, you know, it's intended for nations, but it happens on the ground level in cities, towns, and counties and regions around the world. So I really appreciate that Meghna ended with one of her questions on think about COP 28. Think about next year. Where do you want to be? What do you envision? So I'm going to give everyone an opportunity to not have to wait a full year to do this. A very important process around the Paris Agreement is happening right now, from now through the end of next year. It's called the Global Stocktake. You may hear about this. It's a global stocktake for the Paris Agreement, essentially asking, where are we at today? How have we made progress? How have we not? And envisioning where we want to be. And then, as Meghna had mentioned at the beginning, what's the just way to achieve that in place of where we want to be? So this is an official process through the UNFCCC to collectively tell that story of where we're at on the Paris Agreement. Now, just this year, the UNFCCC realized that it's not only nations that should be telling that story. It's cities and towns around the world that paint the best picture of where we're at on the Paris Agreement. So I'm happy to announce today that ICLEI and Earth Day have partnered to bring the Paris local stocktake into reality as a process that will unfold across next year, with a key moment being Earth Day 2023. So we invite, yes. Great, we're inviting all communities up here, all communities that you represent in the audience to pledge to host your own local stocktake event. And we're giving you all the tools to do this. So we made a whole toolkit with all the slide decks and the activities you're going to do in your communities, and an official form to submit to the UNFCCC and say, this is what Dakar is doing. This is what San Jose is doing. Here is our official contribution to the Paris Agreement, so that collectively we paint this picture of where we're at, number one, where we want to go, and how we're going to get there in a just way. So if you want to take this motto from Earth Day forward, invest in our planet, adopting a local stocktake for your own community on or around Earth Day. It should be on Earth Day, right, Council Member? This is a great way to stand up and say we're investing with our planet, with all community members involved in this local stock take process. So come up and talk to me or Evan about how to host a stock take in your community. And I think we'll closing out with some words from Evan and Earth Day Network. Thanks, Evan.
Thank you, Kil, for that brilliant summary of where we will be going over the next 6 months as we approach Earth Day 2022. And thank you all of our esteemed panelists here today. The wisdom that you shared with us is truly inspiring. I want to thank you for such an illuminating discussion on how local officials are stepping up as leaders on climate. After hearing your conversation, it is evident to me that investing in our planet truly is the best path forward to a prosperous civilization. Over the next 6 months, we will begin to strategize together on how we can make those investments early, often, and at pace with what we know science tells us. Local leaders, once again, you are in the best position to take action on climate. You have the immense capacity to affect the quality of the air, land, water, and climate that we depend on for survival. And when you take that action, you are taking the greatest step that you possibly can to ensure a happy, healthy, and wealthy future for your constituents. In choosing to use Earth Day to rally for the global stock take process, you will have time to both prepare an excellent event while still having ample time to make progress on your new goals ahead of COP28 a year from today. The world cannot wait to see what you all accomplish, and I cannot wait to join you. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of COP27.